Hi, so I am Alexandria Procter. I am the co-founder and CEO of DigsConnect.com. DigsConnect is Africa's largest student housing marketplace. So basically it's a place where landlords can go on and list their properties and students go on and find a home and roommates and a place to live while they're pursuing their higher education.
Do you miss the hacking things together phase of things?
You know, that's a very interesting question. I had such an interesting lunch the other day. In London with the CEO of a huge company. He's got a few companies in his portfolio, and we're speaking about that tension between like as you grow and losing the ability to innovate sometimes, obviously for the normal reasons. It's so big, it's hard to turn around, you've got more vested interests in the company, and what that means. I mean, obviously things get bigger, it's exciting, things feel like they're working. Yeah. But also if you get complacency is almost like a death ticket, And there's this thing that Jeff Bezos says, and I always read Jeff Bezos' letters to investors. I know he's a contagious character, but he's undeniably,
a great business, incredible. He
took the rules and he won. How those rules are set is up to policymakers. That's up to parliamentarians and governments. But within the set of rules, he figured out how to build something extraordinary. And he has this thing he says where every day is day one. And I love that. So I think that asking about hacking things together, I think you should never stop hacking things together, no matter how big the company is. And I think COVID taught us that. And I think now these hectic maneuvers in the financial markets are showing us more than ever. Like every day is day one. And as soon as you get complacent, there are competitors popping up. And they're going to be coming in hot. They're going to be learning from your mistakes. Yeah. They're going to be probably better funded than you, probably smarter. And I mean, with me, it's quite a low bar. So it's not hard to be smarter than me. And so, you got to stay on your toes. I think you got to stay on your toes. I think that complacency is a death ticket in a way. So every day is day one. So always got to hack it together.
That's such a scary, thought process to have. And a lot of people have this mentality, which is every day you have to earn your place. And every day you have to justify why people have invested in you, why people are willing to leave their jobs at different companies and come work for you, why customers would place, and
their hard-earned money.
With you is more than just money. This is a roof over my head. It's serious.
Literally.
How do you separate the seriousness and the reality of the weight of pressure and still navigate with such grace? Because you do navigate with grace and poise.
Thank you so much for saying that. I feel like I don't feel like, I feel like I know what it is to navigate with grace and poise, and I feel like I'm so far from that.
Well, you make it look good. I have a magazine with your face on the cover. I think that's you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm trying. I think that's another reason why whenever life knocks me down or knocks anyone down, I think one of the best things about it is the humbling effect. And I've started to look at that lately with a lot of respect, because I think as soon as you lose humility, just like that whole day one mentality, you lose ability to be, to operate with poise and grace. And I know that when I get very cocky, my head gets very big, and I'm just I remember one time I did an interview with Bruce Whitfield, and this is Bruce Whitfield. Wow, I mean, he's interviewing guys at Davos. And he tweeted afterwards, just met Alexandria Procter, force of nature, she's going places. Oh, wow. Let me tell you, this head of mine I screenshotted it and I made it my background image on social medias. I would find a way to humble brag and bring into conversations. How do I steer the conversation to Bruce Whitfield's tweet? And, I got so cocky about it. And there's no grace in humility or grace and poise in that. So I think that, every time you do take a knock and every time that this humbling effect is so important, because I think the people we respect the most, the leaders or the people that change the world, that humility is just extraordinary. And I think I'm not a naturally humble person. I think I'm quite flamboyant and I lose that humility. So I think it starts with humility also. But to answer your other question, You caught me at a sort of very interesting time. You know, talking about how to handle the pressure of this and every day kind of being quite intense. I think that you can you need to choose what kind of life you want. You know, if you want a life where you're going to feel comfortable and safe and okay, I've arrived, I can get there now, which is I think definitely the goal for a lot of people who want to have like a calm life. I don't think startups are a good choice.
No.
At all. Unless your goal is to build and sell maybe, and then you can have the life of the exited founder, which is you know, Clifton Forth at 1 p.m. on a Wednesday. But you know, I went through a bit of a journey with this because during the second year of COVID, during lockdown, it was intense. I mean, I think everyone in the world, other than maybe the sellers of toilet paper, were having a pretty tough time, you know.
The essential goods guys.
Yeah,
And the crazy thing is, no one ever thought about what that would mean. Is one day your business could completely be shut out from existing completely. If you're not on this list, it's screw you.
I compared it to when the asteroid hit Earth and the dinosaurs. So like the environmental conditions were in such a way that if you were a dinosaur, you were like gonna win. And then this asteroid hit and suddenly all the environmental conditions changed, you know, because there's like dust in the air, there's less sunlight, there's plants, less food. So actually being really big was terrible. You want to be really small. And so when the environmental conditions change drastically, how do you need to morph or evolve as fast as you can? Obviously evolution doesn't work like that, but how do you need to kind of like evolve in a sense to be the one in that new environment? And so it is this day one mentality, but the stress of doing that, like I'm not going to mince words, it is intense. It nearly, it finished me. By the second year of that, the cortisol being at such a high level, I mean, this was probably a bit of an overshare, but I actually stopped menstruating for 6 months. My cortisol was so high, my body just, I mean, you can get your head in the game, but the body kind of keeps the score and remembers those levels. And to be honest, I remember coming out of that, we got through it, you know, we're kind of pulling rabbits out of hats every day, then the hat disappears, then you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing, I'm just gonna figure it out. And you get through that, you pivot and you change and you find, you know, how do you keep adding value in this world? And that's what you're always doing. And I think with a market like housing, there's always going to be people that need to live somewhere. But it's like the nature of that, the nature of how to help people find their home and how to help a landlord find a tenant, how do you change? So we got through it, which was amazing. But after that, I was so wiped. I was so resentful about work, you know, there's a point where I was like, I just want to get to a point where I can also just take a day off. I mean, I can also just, you know, chill for a bit. And then as soon as I started feeling this resentment about how stressful it was, you know, I think that my ability to be humble, to innovate, to start off with absolutely got diminished. And then the stress started picking up even more. Because I think if you have like a natural aversion to something, you start finding all the worst things in it. You know, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. And if you have this negative mindset, you're just going to like compound this negativity. You kind of, you know, as humans, I think we undervalue what we have and we overvalue what we don't have. And I was like, well, maybe I should, you know, you look at these alternatives. Maybe if I was, you know, living in this place or dating this person or doing this kind of thing or whatever it was, you know, life would be better. And I went through quite a journey with that. And eventually I sort of landed in this place where it's going to sound quite, I don't know, I'm a bit of a fan of Ayn Rand. But I think that I realized after a lot of back and forth and time and travels and reflection and conversations, I think I realized that just having the opportunity to do something extraordinary, that is the gift. You know, the work that you can put out there into the world, you know, you can do something worthwhile through your life. You know, I realized just how fast it all goes, you know, and you kind of think like, what is it for? What am I really, and this plagues me, you know, what am I doing with this time that I have and how to make it meaningful? And I keep coming back to this idea that the opportunity to do something really extraordinary for humanity, that to me seems like an incredibly worthwhile life. And that is the work then. And so as soon as I changed that mindset to being like, oh my God, I got 2,000 unread emails. Oh my God, I got this, to being like, look at these people who are depending on me to do something for them. Look at this, you know, the ripple effects I'm going to have in the economy through these people's lives, through every person who find their home and their friends, like through the investors who put their money and their trust, you know, in what I'm building right now. How extraordinary that is. What a blessing, what a gift. And I changed my mindset to being like, again, it comes back to humility. I can't believe I got lucky enough to have this opportunity to do something extraordinary, to have a life where I can have impact in the world. And then it's straight away, it's like, oh my God, this is amazing that I get to wake up and do this. This is incredible. Like,
you're energized by changing your mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You see the work as the gift. You see the work as like the meaning, you know? This is what I get to do, and this is just gratitude, just absolute gratitude.
How important does purpose become to you? And like, is this something that you are now deciding, okay, I'm in this fortunate position to do this amazing work, therefore that is my purpose? Or was it a process of, I think my purpose is entrepreneurship and to build things that could help other people in some way, and then you found your way to DigsConnect?
What do you think your purpose is, actually? I'd like to ask you that.
Oh, that's scary.
Good.
I think it's changing, it's evolving, right? I always thought that my purpose was to enable, empower and educate others. My mom was she still is a teacher for the past 30 years.
Yeah, what does she teach?
She teaches economics and business studies and vendor in Soweto. And she's done this job for the last 30 years, and I've seen her like wake up every day and go to work. And I thought, what an incredible gift to shape a generation, right? And you probably won't ever hear the story of the kid that she taught in the 14th year, you know, who probably is super successful now. But for me, it was just like, she knows that this work is important. And my aunt is pretty much the same. Like, she was she worked at a care home for people with who are differently abled, right? And you know, across my family, there's a lot of people who are very, you know, public servants who understood that their role was to contribute to society and wanted to add value to the world. And they weren't okay with just getting the job, you know, getting the paycheck and being as successful as possible. I think money is important, it's really good, but I've just always been surrounded by people that wanted to contribute. So I think my purpose is to contribute to this generation in some way. Entrepreneurship just happened to be the thing that found me, right? I think I could still be very happy as just like a business studies teacher teaching matriculants. And if it's about business and helping them shape their ideas about what it takes to build something from 0 to 1 and then 1 to whatever, I think I'd still be fulfilled because I know that I'm contributing something.
Living a purpose.
Yeah.
Living your purpose. Purpose does evolve sometimes, I think. I don't know, but again, this is a quite interesting point in my life, a reflection point, because I thought I knew my purpose. You know, I did this whole...
That's so scary. When you realize, I don't know anymore.
Yeah, I've had so many amazing encounters lately. There's a few things that come to mind. One is what you seek is seeking you, in a sense. So if you go out there with like good intentions, I realize that I'm very bad at hiding my emotions and what I think. I can see my face changes, and I try to be more poker face, even I'm terrible at it. So, you know, as soon as my like intentions change about something, I think it's pretty obvious. And so you have to kind of set your intentions right. And I think you're saying that, you know, you start from this place of wanting to contribute, and however that starts to manifest or come out in whatever form, that purity is there. I think people pick up on that straight away. I think we have this like intuitive sense of how we communicate. I mean, we evolved for each other, you know, in a sense. And so these tiny little social cues we pick up on. And if you have this amazing poker face, I think we kind of pick it up. And so you have to operate, I think, from that place of like, from authenticity and being like, okay, cool, let me kind of settle on what it is and then kind of operate from there. Something else that someone told me the other day, which is literally I've literally just forgotten about. I had this whole amazing thesis statement that sound like roomy. But a 12-hour flight and no sleep is really just...
What's that doing to you? You're doing a lot of traveling and like working in different places and traveling a lot.
Yeah.
You said something about, you know, your body keeps the score. What's that like? Two points. One is that our planet is amazing and humanity is amazing and every corner of it is amazing. You know, I think that these
us versus them narratives. A lot of politicians try to ride on to, you know, win a popular vote is absolute rubbish. Like, humans are wonderfully homogenous. Like, everyone's the same things. If you're sitting in Kigali, New York City, in Tokyo, Buenos Aires, everyone wants to have a good life, you know, to fall in love, to have a meaningful career, to have their kids go to school, to have a good time and fun and feel wonder and awe and feel safe. And I think that but how people express that is always obviously a bit nuanced in every different culture. And I've been traveling a lot lately for DigsConnect. We expand internationally, and for the NYDA also. And every time I go to a new city, I feel like as soon as I get there, I'm like, I kind of imagine my life there, and I feel like I could live there. And I'd be like, oh yeah, Jaipur, 100%. You know, I'm going to stay for him. Actually, I got the scarf I'm wearing from a friend in Rajasthan. Or I'd get to Lisbon and be like, oh my gosh, Lisbon, I'm never leaving. Amazing. Or wherever it is, Buenos Aires, or, you know, London, or anywhere. It's just, the world is just so cool and so incredible, and I love humanity, and I love the way that people express themselves and build, and it's wonderful. But on the same token, every time I land back in Cape Town or Johannesburg, I literally start crying. It is just this feeling of the air and the sun and the easy friendliness of everyone here. It's sort of both. I think that the idea of a home is really important. I think the idea of like a sanctuary is important. But also I think we like this intrepidness. There's this really great quote by Carl Sagan where he says the open road still softly calls, and he talks about other planets orbit the sun silently, they wait for us to explore. So I think it's a bit of both. You know, I think the boring answer our parents gave is the right answer, where it's about a balanced life, but also we're in a position right now, the company, where it's growing really fast. I'm expanding offshore, and I'm just riding that wave, you know, and going where duty leads me.
You know, I think it's interesting, you know, speaking to founders at different stages of their business, right? Like, my most recent podcast was with a guy who is, you know, less than 15 employees. They just rose their first raised.
Oh, Rose also, why not? Let's make up our own rules.
They just raised their pre-seed round, very small amount as well. And he's saying, you know, I never want my company to go over 40 employees. We're really happy where we are. We just need to try and scale the impact significantly. Where are you guys at number-wise? But also, what does it take to be who you need to be where you are now versus where you needed to be when you were starting out? Because when I spoke to you, I think, is that 2 years ago?
Yeah, was it during COVID or pre-COVID?
I think it's like mid off. Who do you need to be at the beginning versus who you are now?
Well, I'll start with the numbers question. So, you know, when we first started, I think ignorance is actually your best friend in a sense. You know, obviously look back at some of the decisions you make and you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Like, and I know in a year's time, well, hopefully I look back in a year's time and be like, I can't believe I did that. It shows growth. Yeah, but I think ignorance is your best friend in a way, because you kind of want to go with an open mind and almost a blank slate, so you can learn really fast on the job. You want to learn from the actual doing, not like the theory of it, because the doing just like really drives the lessons home. I always say that running a business during the lockdown was like an MBA every day, because it's real life. You know, like everything's on the stakes are really high and everything's on the line. So I think, you know, starting out is all your energy, and it's all your ignorance, and it's all your naivety, and it's all your passion, and it's doing everything at once, learning about your customers, learning about the product, learning about how it ties together, learning about your model and how to iterate on that, learning about the market. You know, I remember the first time I heard the term EBITDA, I was like, wow.
Was that the moment you were like, oh yeah, this is real?
I mean, it's even like small things. Like when I first registered the business on Civic, I remember it's like, pick your financial year end. And I was like, what's a financial year end? And I think it was like April, so I was like, April, I guess. And everyone to this day is like, why is your financial year not February, like every other company in the world? And I was like, I don't know, it was April, and to this day it's still April. So those kind of things you kind of just figure out as you go, and also you kind of level up as you need to, you know. So you take investor money on, it's like, okay, well, this is like someone else's money now. Also you need your clients reach a certain level, and you're like, okay, well, this is actually impacting a lot of people, things are very serious now. So you kind of have to grow. I think you grow with it as you go. And I think it comes back again to humility, being like, okay, am I willing to accept when things are going wrong? And I think one of the big mistakes we fell into when we first started was the idea of what success looks like as opposed to what it actually is. And the idea of it is this very glamorous kind of thing, where it's like, okay, you gotta have a huge team, you know, like team is almost seen as like a metric of success. And you look at like the LinkedIn top startup list, it's like how big the team is. But I think it's actually really misguided, because if you look at like a company like WhatsApp, when it's sold to Facebook, I think they had like 15 or something employees, and they sold for like, you know, they're unicorn status. And so it's actually not about, you know, just having, you know, numbers. It's to be like, what is the most efficient way you can deliver the value to your users. So our team numbers were huge at the beginning, because we wanted to grow and be amazing and be over the top. But we actually hadn't like really nailed down some of the more fundamental parts of the business. I mean, we had a different model then. Obviously, you know, COVID forced us to pivot, so we weren't expecting to pivot. But yeah, we hadn't even like sort of nailed on those fundamentals. We were like, okay, we need this. We had a really cool office. It wasn't like ridiculous. I mean, it was like an attic, but still, it was like, you know, we had a small office, and then we moved to this bigger office that was like a bit bigger, but still we didn't necessarily have to do that, just because it was really cool. We had like a swing from the ceiling, and we were like, we're so startup-y, and that was like completely unnecessary.
Yeah. We
used to have launch events for, you know, new features on our app. We had like an app launch event. Like, dude, that's so unnecessary. Like, you don't have to have an app. Now if we do it, like, it's maybe a post, more importantly, conversations with our users. Yeah, you don't like launch events. Oh my gosh, all those kind of things. You know, I think the glamour of it can often lead people astray. Also, the big thing is fundraising. You know, obviously when news breaks with fundraise, everyone goes mad, berserk, and that was really exciting, and then everyone reports on it. But revenue is the best investor. So people aren't celebrating, oh, you know, improved your traction, you've increased your conversion rate, you've pumped up revenue like, you know, X amount. But, or you spent, you know, 100 iterations trying to get this feature right, and you failed every single time except for the last time. That is success. You know, that's a cool metric to work towards. And I think that's the way I've kind of learned is, you know, it's actually quite simple at the end of the day. It's just create value for your users. They pay you for it. Make sure you get paid. And then just grow. You know, and all the other things are fun, but I think red herrings definitely.
Yeah. How do you think of running a global business versus a domestic one? And also, where did this expansion come from, right? Because, you know, my thinking was always going to be, you know, you sort of figure out South Africa and you expand really aggressively across the different, you know, very core areas where students are around, and then possibly go across the continent.
Yeah.
What does that look like now?
Yeah, well, again, it was one of those, like, our hand was forced in a way. So it was during lockdown, and it was the second year of lockdown, and we weren't sure if South Africa was going to be opening up or not for university, but other markets were opening up. And so it was the idea of, well, we should need, like, launch internationally, because we knew that we'd have a bit of a chance then to kind of get revenue through the door. And we definitely weren't ready to go, but we kind of just had to, you know, we had to just make it happen. You know, there's this saying that a startup runs out of money. I just totally read my saying. No! A startup fails when it runs out of money. And I don't think that's true. I think a startup fails when the founders run out of energy. Because as long as you still invest at heart, you know, mind and soul, you will keep iterating, you'll keep figuring it out, you're going to keep, you know, pulling those rabbits out of our hats and making it happen. And so that was one of those things where it was absolutely insane. You know, we were on the end of 2 really hard years, and we're like, we got to look at new markets, you know. Obviously South Africa did end up opening up, and we had a really good season in 2022, which was amazing. But then we kind of started looking at markets overseas, and so we kind of just followed through with that. Yeah, markets in Europe had started opening up, and so it's a case of just make this happen. And then it's actually quite a great story. I was having a random conversation with someone at some tech event like a year ago, and he mentioned that he knew the guys at student.com. So student.com is the world's biggest student housing platform, similar to DigsConnect, but they've been going for a while, and they're just absolutely massive. And the team is amazing. And he mentioned he knew the team there, and I was like, okay, and they completely forgot about it. And then during that time, we think of offshoring. Obviously, we're looking at the competitive landscape, and student.com kept popping up, and I was like, how are we going to compete with these guys? Like, South Africa is amazing in that, you know, the competition landscape isn't that intense. But you go to a market like, you know, Europe or the States or the UK, there's like 100 guys that are funded by like dollars. You know, you're coming there with your 20 to 1 rand. You're like, how's it? So, you can take your multi-million-dollar marketing campaign against my £5 and we're going to make something happen here.
Sure.
They say constraints make you more creative, but there's limits to
I'm a big fan of that saying. Like, constraints really do make us more innovative and creative. But there are limits, yes. Competing against dollars is one of them.
Competing against dollars, pounds, euros, it's tough. I mean, on the other hand, though, if you've got your cost base in South Africa, that gives you a huge competitive edge. A huge competitive edge. And so a lot of investors would like that. And so I kept seeing this name pop up, and I was like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? And then one day randomly, I still remember I was in Greenpoint, and I was driving, and suddenly I remembered that I met this guy who knew the team of Stream.com. So it's such a crazy story. So I literally pulled over on the side of the road. I was riding the street opposite where Vega is, and pulled up, and I pulled my handbrake up, and I messaged him on WhatsApp, and I said, hey, first I tried to call him, and the phone was engaged, didn't even go through, it was just like cut out, and I was like, oh my gosh, why did you change his number? And then I WhatsApped him, and I said, hey, how you doing? Do you still know that they have contacts there? And he replied a message, and he's like, I've actually moved to Berlin. I was going to change my WhatsApp number like tomorrow.
Oh wow!
So you got me just in time. And I was like, that's mad. And he said, yeah, I know the founder there. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he goes, yeah, I'll send you his number. Which I think, for the record, you definitely shouldn't send out people's numbers like randomly. It's without first checking with the person. You get those like phone calls, and someone's like, hey, I got your number from this person. You're just like,
why did you do that?
Send an email first, please. But anyways, he sent his number, which was amazing. And literally straight away I called him. So his name's Luke. And since then, this was like 2 years ago, Luke has become one of my closest friends. He's one of the coolest guys I think I've ever met. He's like an older brother to me. But obviously Tom didn't know him at all. So I just call him, and he answers. And I'm like, how's it? You don't know me, but you should. DigsConnect is huge, it's growing. You guys are, you're sleeping on Africa. It's the fastest growing youth population in the world. Like, it's going to go places, and we should really work together so you can like take advantage of this growing market here. And no. And I think he thought this person is absolutely
on a cold call. Yeah,
literally talking absolute shit. But he's like, look, I'm in Dubai for the next 2 weeks. If you can get here, we can chat. So, obviously South African passport, getting visas is like, it's not easy. But anyways, managed to just hustle my way, got a visa, hopped on a flight to Dubai, and my co-founder and I, Greg, and I never forget, we met him at a place called Senor Pico on, the Palm in Dubai. They have like that Palm man-made
I've
island.
seen this on the internet, yes.
So we went to this place called Senor Pico, and it was so great. It's like a Mexican themed restaurant, and you're kind of looking out over Dubai. And I think straight away it's like those things when we met our first investors, where you hit it off. There's that chemistry where you're just like, oh my gosh, we've got the same vision and alignment, and where we do business and sense of humor. And we just absolutely connected so well, and we realized we could definitely work together on this. And so we signed that partnership. I think the news broke in 2021 about it, and yeah, we've partnered with them ever since, and that's been absolutely incredible. So that was a huge part of us expanding internationally, and we're going ever since, really.
Cool. Just need to pause.